That's in Japan. And this is an interesting case. Well, we did 2 big national projects in Japan. I want to go to this one. This was on, because it shows how you can use deliberative polling to shed light on a difficult problem. We actually do well when all the choices have a problem. So Japan, and it doesn't matter if it's a national problem or a local problem, this process is the same. So Japan, as you know, is getting very old. In fact, it's one of the oldest countries in the world in terms of the average age and the number of elderly, et cetera, et cetera. And this causes a big strain for their national pension system. So the government at the time, this is 2011, government at the time thought, well, maybe they should privatize the pension system, as they've done in Chile, where everybody would have a private account and it wouldn't be a government-run system anymore. Because then you wouldn't have the problem that right now the people who are working pay into the pension system and the retirees get the money, but if the number of people retired, the ratio between the retired and the working changes, so there are fewer and fewer workers for each retired person, it gets to be a problem. So the Japanese, so one proposal was to privatize the pension system. Another proposal was to keep the government-run system, but somehow find the money to make it solvent, which would require a rise in taxes. One of the things that amazed me about the Japanese is they have such a concern for privacy that they don't have an effective system of Social Security numbers so that they can keep track of who's paying in their system, paying into their system. So they actually lose the equivalent of billions of dollars because people aren't paying what they are supposed to be paying. But they're very concerned about privacy. So if they had a tax, they needed a tax that people could pay without keeping track of individual Social Security numbers. So what happened is they agreed that they ought to raise the consumption tax, which is sort of like a VAT. Anyway, it's a tax that people pay when they buy things, and which was at that point very low nationally in Japan. It was 3.5%. They wanted. So our deliberative poll charted the path to raising the consumption tax to keeping the pension system solvent, and that's what the government did. And it has now gone through with the new government. So they actually chart. Now, you might say, was that the best solution? My answer is, given the values of the people, it was the best solution for them. That is, they wanted to keep their privacy. They wanted the security of a government-run system. They didn't want the risk of individually investing their pensions in the stock market. So for them, it was the right solution. And the government economists and policymakers, they didn't really realize the values of the people, but we could see them becoming very clear when they talked about it. As you can see here, they had a very, as you often find in politics and public opinion, or in policy proposals, they had a very clever name for the private accounts. They called it the funded system, because each person would have an account that was funded by what they had in their account. So they call it the funded system. So it's a good idea, but then when they really thought about it, they thought about the risk, they didn't like it. The more they talked about it, the less they liked it, even though everything was balanced. So this is a sense in which the deliberative poll was able to influence an important national policy by explaining what the people wanted when they thought about it and why. We did the same thing in Japan on the energy problem after Fukushima, the big disaster. So now we're at RAN, and the idea here will be in vulnerable communities, like the ones Roy described, what solutions the people would buy into, what solutions they would really believe ought to be done if they thought about it. Now, you might then say, well, what about the people who haven't thought about it? Well, what we find is, once you understand the reasons why a representative sample of the public would prefer one solution or another, those reasons can be presented to everybody else. Just like in that Japanese case with the pension system, it was very easy for people then to say, well, the really important thing was to respect people's privacies, but also to give them the security of a government-funded system. And so that's why the consumption tax was the right solution. So in the same way, whatever the solutions are, we need to be able to identify policy alternatives that might actually speak to the recurring problems of the floods and the rock slides and the communities that, should they move, should they have a warning system, should special efforts be made to help them stay where they are, what are the solutions? Maybe we should open it up for questions, because I've thrown a lot at you. Anybody have any questions about how this works or what it tries to accomplish? Yes?
Thank you very much, our facilitator. All things sounds especially where you are past and on the issues that you've done. My concern is if you come to a district and you are tackling a particular issue, are you going to have one group that you are talking to, or you are going to have several groups, and afterwards you find out how the vote has worked? Because then our concern is, even when we consult sometimes, there are those who think that they must be talked to. And since it seems you are using the